In this video, I want to talk with you about the covenant with many. Now, the covenant, there are some things that God is going to reveal that are going to be building blocks. Usually, that's how he's revealing things. I mean, look at his pattern all the way back to the Old Testament. You have concrete examples of what he's later going to reveal to you in spiritual symbolism so that you can understand spiritual things. Okay, so he's going to start out with building blocks, and then he's going to build on that. Now, when God first started talking with me about the covenant with many, he was drawing my attention to Laudato Si. And in part because there was so much talk at that time about climate change and global warming, and Francis was pushing this agenda of Laudato Si, and there had been a 7-year anniversary of Laudato Si. And so at that time, when the witnesses were being anointed, what was happening in the world was a lot of climate agenda being pushed. A lot of climate agenda being pushed in these various summits that the U.S. has with Europe. A lot of it. And it was going into legislation, particularly in Europe. But also here in the United States. And the reason I know that it was happening in Europe is because I was speaking with people in Europe on the channel who were telling me that they were required to get these, solar panels on their roof and all of this other stuff. The reason why that's significant, and this was in 2022, so Biden was in office, and it seemed to me, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but it seemed to me he was benefiting financially from this. Well, also, Francis has a permanent seat in the United Nations, and so he's influencing what's going on. He's influencing ideology, he's influencing agenda, or was, I should speak in the past tense, but, the Pope has this kind of influence. And so it was influencing ideology. Why would this matter? Well, for one, he came up with the 10 commandments of climate change. That's kind of problematic, isn't it? Since that's blatantly extra biblical. Secondly, that document, Laudato Si, leads you to submit yourselves to the false god of science, that field that denies that there's a creator. And third, which is most important, Christians are supposed to recognize their covenant. They're supposed to recognize that when God is harming the earth, that what he's doing, 2 Chronicles chapter 7, is calling you back to him. 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 13. When I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people who are called, not chosen, called, you will not be chosen until you respond the correct way, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Implication is, his people who are called by his name have angered him. That's why he's sending these things. They are sinning, and they need to turn from their wicked ways. Then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers offered in this place. I have chosen and consecrated this temple so that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. Okay? Few verses down, verse 19. But if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands I have given you and go off to serve other gods and worship them, science, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and will reject this temple. You're a temple, by the way. Don't act like this is only for Solomon's time. You're Israel, by the way. You have been called into a land, and you can be ejected from that land. There's some spiritual significance for you. Then I will uproot Israel from my land which I have given them, and I will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. This temple will become a heap of rubble. All who pass by will be appalled and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? By the way, you've been likened to land, and you've also been likened to a temple. People will answer, because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping them and serving them. That is why he brought all this disaster on them. You're supposed to know that. You are supposed to know that this is your covenant. You're supposed to know that in Exodus 15:26, He said, if you obey me, I'm not going to put on you any of the diseases that I put on the Egyptians. I'm the Lord who heals you. You're not supposed to go and set up all these idols. What is everyone always concerned about? Oh, healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. Oh my goodness, Medicaid is going away. We're all going to die. I can't even tell you the last time I went to a doctor. But I can tell you right now that I will never go to a doctor again for the rest of the time that I am alive on this earth. Because I know who heals me. He has proven himself to me. And because now I know my covenant. And I know that I cannot go and serve other gods. I cannot put idols before my God. And so when I was talking with you about the covenant with many, this was one of the things I included was Laudato Si and all of this climate change, global warming propaganda, because that was what was going on at the time, and that's what God was revealing. Now, that is a building block. There have been many blocks that have been built on top of that since then. And what I have told you this in previous videos, that the way to understand the covenant with many that the Antichrist extends is that covenant with many is anti-covenant. You have a Christ and you have an antichrist, the enemy of Christ. You have a covenant and you have an anti-covenant. And so the covenant that Satan has extended, just like the covenant that Jesus has extended, he didn't say, sign on the dotted line, did he? You're supposed to know the covenant that Jesus has extended by his Spirit and his word. Spirit and his truth. That's what you were told in John 4. You worship him in the Spirit and in truth. True worshipers must worship him in the Spirit and in truth. And then he moves you to follow his laws and keep his decrees. His law is written on the tablets of your heart and mind. But if what you worship is antichrist, then what you are going to do is follow an anti-covenant. A covenant that disregards and replaces and covets and usurps God's authority, his sovereignty over his own creations. And so you go to science, you go to those doctors, you go to those talk therapists, those experts, those saviors that you've set up in your life. That is anti-covenant. And so what I taught you is correct. That is part of the covenant with many. It is anti-covenant. It is against the covenant that God established with you, and its intention, or the devil's intention, in establishing those ideologies and that false gospel of science is to lure you away from your creator, even by telling you that there is no creator. And even by telling you, many practitioners within those fields, oh, I'm a Christian doctor. Oh, I'm a Christian therapist. Hogwash. These are oxymorons. Science and Christianity are at odds. They cannot be married. You are not going to join God with a prostitute or make him submit himself to the false god of science. You know why? Because he says in Isaiah that he does not yield his glory or his praise to anybody. He is not going to bow down to an idol. So stop praying for him to anoint the hands of the idols you have placed before him. He's your healer. If you don't want him, then stop calling on him to do things your way with your idols. Now, since that time that covenant was being spoken to me, God was teaching me about this covenant, what else has happened? Project 25 was really being worked on at that time. We see what that agenda has yielded. It didn't have the authority to go into effect yet. It didn't have the power to go into effect. And you're going to see some things when that Antichrist begins to reign. The Antichrist is in power right now, but when it begins to actually reign, you think it's bad right now? You just wait. I want you to think about who's in the Antichrist. Babylon the Great, the harlot Catholic Church, the prostitutes that bore out of her. What is this? How would we understand that? Well, the Protestants, anyone who continues in the prostitutions that came from her, Christmas, Easter, Sunday and Saturday Sabbaths, image of the cross, counterfeit tithing to maintain their marketplace. They covet the olive oil, the bread, and the wine, and they charge you, administering this falsehood at a price. God said, don't make my house a marketplace. What do you not understand about that? You can't have two masters. What do you not understand about that? So you don't actually have to be a Protestant. Mormons would not be considered Protestants. They do all of these things, except for the image of the cross, but they have a giant image of hippie Jesus in their temples and visitor centers. Even though Paul said it's disgraceful for a man to have long hair. Everyone's got a hippie Jesus with long hair. Big old sissy feminine image of Jesus. The word said not to do that. What does this also include? It includes the Christian nationalists. It includes the Christian Zionists and all of their ideologies. Anti-covenant, anti-Christ. What about the false prophet? All its ideologies. Zionism, nationalism, pledge allegiance to our image. Pledge allegiance to the image of counterfeit Israel, the image of the Antichrist, counterfeit Israel, which they created. All of these ideologies that are coming from this Antichrist are the covenant. And you know, we like to separate out what these different things are. Oh, this is the mark of the beast and this is the blah, blah, blah. Do you understand that the mark of the beast is what's coming from your heart? You are supposed to have Christ's covenant in your heart. It's supposed to be written on the tablets of your heart and mind. If you have an Antichrist covenant coming from your heart, it's written on the tablets of your heart and mind. Okay? And that's what's going to come out of your right hand, and it's going to come out of your forehead. Your thoughts and beliefs, your deeds, the things that you do, and the things that you speak. That's what's coming out of you. And you're going to look like all of the things that I just described to you. This is not a political party issue. This is a Christ versus Antichrist issue. And the majority of those living today are going to fall into the Antichrist. You have to know that. There's only a remnant that's going to be saved. It is very hard for the righteous to be saved. Do you understand? I'm not speaking on my own authority. I'm speaking what the word says. It's very difficult for the righteous to be saved. So how many people are going to be saved, guys, out of this entire world? Why are there only 144,000 witnesses in the entire world right now? Why? I don't know the world's population, nor do I care, but I know it's a lot more than 144,000. And I know that within those calling themselves Christian, that there are a lot more than 144,000. So why is that all God could round up at this point in history? Because no one is speaking truth. If they were, they would have been chosen for this purpose. And yet you guys gather around yourself a heck of a lot of teachers on your YouTube channels. I've seen them. I've seen what you're subscribed to. And so it's true what's written about you. That you gather around yourselves many teachers to tell you what your itching ears want to hear. You don't discern at all who you're supposed to be listening to, who is from God. You're not testing the spirit to see if they're from God. You're not looking at the fruit. Some of you even claim things like, well, no single person has all the truth. Well, they better be speaking truthfully. Everyone's been given a task, but if someone is speaking falsehood, they're not a person of truth. And if God has truly anointed them to that position, then God's going to be the one holding them accountable to speaking the truth. This isn't like some department store rack where you go and you like, oh, I'll just take what I like and leave the rest. That's not how that works. The covenant with many is everything that is anti-covenant. Everything that goes in opposition to the covenant that you have with Christ. And in order for you to recognize it, you have to know what your covenant is with Christ, people of God. Did you know about Exodus 15:26 that God says he's your healer and he's not going to put these diseases on you? And that then subsequent to that in Leviticus, he's teaching you about skin issues and how to determine whether something is serious enough to where you need to be kicked out of the camp versus something that is a warning. Do you know that? Why aren't those other teachers teaching you that? All of you need to step away from the people you're listening to. And if that includes me, then that includes me. If you have not discerned me, you need to step away. And you need to go to God. Return to him. Ask him, who are the people of truth? Who are your people, Lord, that I should be listening to? And if there's no one, then there's no one. And you need to start receiving from him first and his word. And he should be cleaning you up and getting rid of the falsehood that all of us, myself included, have ingested in our lives because we've been living during such a time of deception. But God's power, his Spirit, is enough. He can clean you up, but you need to return to him. Please discern this message with God.